Hello, veterinary friends. Welcome to the Veterinary Life Coach Podcast. Today, I have an amazing guest for you. Her name is M.J. Murray Vachon. She's the creator and founder of The Inner Challenge, a mental wellness program launched in 1993 and taught for 21 years in junior high schools and Notre Dame Football. She hosts a podcast entitled Creating Midlife Calm, which was chosen by Maria Shriver as her Listen of the Week in January of 2024. She's the co-author of The Power and Pain of Nursing, Self-Care Practices to Protect and Replenish Compassion. And she has had more than 50,000 therapy sessions supporting clients through anxiety, depression, parenting challenges, and life transitions, which will be perfect for my veterinary friends. Welcome to the podcast, MJ. I'm delighted to have
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you.
so
I'm really
happy you're
excited.
here. Yeah, I think this is going to be great. You talk about all the things that we're interested in, so I'm excited to hear about it. So my first question to all my guests is to just have them tell me their story, how you got to where you are today.
I find it amazing that I'm on a podcast for vets because I grew up wanting to be a vet.
Oh, I love
And
that.
and that's true. And in high school, I worked for a vet. I'm from South Bend, Indiana, and I worked for Dr. Carol Ecker, who was the
Oh,
first woman to be the president of the Indiana Veterinary Association.
amazing.
And back in those days, they didn't have vet techs. So, in order to become one of her assistants, you had to clean cages for a year, which I happily did on holidays and weekends and anytime she would
That's
schedule
how I
me.
started.
Okay. And my first surgery was a cat that needed a cesarean section, and I fainted
Oh, you did. Passed
and I
right out, huh?
passed right out. Still remember Dr. Carol with the smelling salts, and she said that was not unusual. The
No, it's
se-
very common.
Yeah. So the next day she had me in again, back on the horse, and I fainted again.
Oh, poor
And
thing.
she called me into her office and she said, "You're fired."
No way. She did?
She did. And she said, "There's
Oh,
only two kinds of people in the world, those who can tolerate blood and those who can't." And I was obviously in the second. So I went home and I cried. And my
oh, of
dad, who was a big
course. That's
supporter,
heartbreaking. Yeah.
yeah, he said, "I don't know why you're crying. Think about all that she saved you from. You could have gone to college and studied all the science and gotten to vet school and then fainted."
And then hated it. Yeah.
Right. So that's my introduction to how I became a licensed clinical social worker, which is also about taking care of mammals
Sure.
without blood and without
Right, right.
guts.
You don't have to cut on anyone.
Yes. And I've done that for more than 40 years. I love it. I've had three bad days. And I've been fortunate to have a career that I've worn two hats, as you talked about in the introduction. I'm a clinician. I've had over 50,000 hours of sessions. But about year seven, I realized in 1993, this information on mental health was not out there like it is today.
Mm.
And I, with a colleague, Tony Hinkie Wheeler, we created a girls' camp, which morphed into a mental wellness program in a junior high, which now, I did it for Notre Dame football. I'm doing it in a couple of weeks for leadership at a bank. And I have a master class coming out in a month or two that people can do online and really learn the concepts to understand what is mental wellness and cultivate it.
I love that. How rewarding is that to coach kids? Because junior high is the worst time of life, isn't it? Like, didn't we
Actually,
all have terrible junior high experiences?
ironically, I love junior high. Out of all my education, those were my
Yeah,
favorite years. I went to a public junior high who that was about 5 years old. The average age of the teachers were 26, 27.
nice.
So I think that what may have been why we targeted that. There's good developmental reasons why we chose that age group, but I actually love junior high and I love that age group so much.
Well, that's a perfect age group to start to talk about mental wellness because that's when I think it starts to go awry.
Yes.
I know that
And
that's where a lot of my negativity stories came from. And my daughter had a really rough time and like the end of elementary school and going into junior high. So that's a
yeah,
perfect time to do this.
yes, there's a lot of changes. And this was a program that I co-created with junior high students because when we started this, there was no emotional social learning. We looked for a program, not thinking we would create one, but there wasn't one. It was 1993. And The great thing about junior high students is they're very honest. They would say, MJ, that's really stupid. MJ, that's helpful. MJ, we really need many of our topics, many of the processes that I created really came from their honest appraisal of it.
That's amazing. So how did you come to get into the nursing thing? Because your book is directed at nurses, right?
Yes, my
Or is that
cousin is a
also more?
nurse, so I co-authored, and during the pandemic, my cousin, who is a hospice nurse, my husband, who researches compassion and medicine
Mm.
at the University of Notre Dame and teaches pre-meds, uh, and another woman who was also a nurse, we created a program for physicians and hospital staffs during the pandemic. And the book is basically what we did with them.
So that's perfect for our world in veterinary medicine because we're very much like physicians and nurses, and we have basically, I think, the same stressors that they all have. So
Yes,
we thought we might today talk a little bit about that and how do we create and understand mental wellness in veterinary medicine and how we how you would present that and teach us about that. So do you want to go down that road?
that sounds great because I've done prior to when we did so many things on Zoom, I did over 800 workshops. And I would always start out with this question: what is mental illness? And
Mm,
in the 90s, nobody knew. People were kind of embarrassed. And then now, prior, to 2020, people were very fluent in what they knew about mental illness, and they would give appropriate statistics, and it was really impressive to me.
yeah.
And I would follow it up with the question, what is mental wellness? And it would be crickets.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
And I had this experience in around 2008 or 9. My program then was, 10, 15 years old. I went to a workshop where Dr. Dan Siegel, a neuropsychiatrist, asked that question. 900 or so clinicians in the audience, 3 people raised their hand. I was not one of them, and I was teaching mental wellness.
Oh, so were you kind of embarrassed by that, or did you
Sure.
think I
I,
gotta I
I
gotta up my game?
yeah, I mean, as you know, with medicine, it's the learning never ends. So I was appropriately embarrassed and comforted that there was maybe 3 people who knew it that maybe worked for Siegel. I don't know. And but I then just really set out to find definitions. So let me just start with that, because
Okay.
if we know what we're trying to develop, then we're probably going to develop it. It's that easy, right? What makes a vet successful? There's all these protocols that they follow to get the sick animal from illness to health, right?
Right,
And if
right.
we want to cultivate mental health, it's the exact same thing. And
Okay.
the two definitions I use are the World Health Organization's definition, which is common sense. And what the World Health Organization says is mental wellness is a state of well-being where we realize our own abilities, right? We all have abilities, and we're able to use them in ways that are productive and fruitful, not just for us, but for the communities that we live in. And mental wellness is a state where we can cope with normal stressors of life,
Mm,
and we have the skills to do that. And we're also able to make a contribution to our families, our workplaces, and our community. So it's really important that we understand that this definition, which isn't going to surprise anybody out there, we want people to develop their skills and their abilities. We want people to share them with others. There's nothing about mental wellness that is selfish. It's
sure.
actually we develop and nurture ourselves so we can be fruitful and productive in the communities that we are part of. So that's
Yeah.
the 40,000 foot definition.
Okay. Yeah.
And any
That brings
questions or thoughts
meaning,
on that?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of brings meaning to life because I know through things that I've done in the past, I've kind of come to understand that that's what drives me is finding meaning, because
Yes.
there's different drivers people have. And so to me, when you say that, contributing and helping and being part of your community sounds to me like you have a meaningful life and therefore you have wellness.
Yes. And
Yeah.
in this days of social media, where a meaningful life online is often climbing 14,000 foot mountains or creating something that is, goes viral.
Right.
I am just a big believer that if you want to cultivate mental wellness, you start with a very ordinary life and you do all of these things in an ordinary way. So if your neighbor is sick, you run over part of your dinner that you made for your family. That is a way to contribute. That
Sure.
as your, listeners who are vets, wow. I mean, in this day, what can we say about the role animals have in our life when it comes to cultivating connection and mental wellness? Even when I walk by someone with a dog and I always am like, oh, that's such a cute dog. Like that's contributing.
It
That's
brings joy.
contributing, right?
Hmm.
It brings joy. And so I think we often feel worse than we need to because our expectations of what this life of ours should be like are set up online instead of no boots on the ground.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
an ordinary life is a beautiful life. And just if we can see online for what it is just something that is to get us to consume and to sell products, then we can kind of right size within ourselves what
Yeah.
we want of ourselves in our life.
I think veterinarians forget that too, that even though our job feels routine some days, like we're giving vaccines and we're fixing ear infections and it feels very routine, those services mean a lot to these people that we serve. And we
Yes.
have a tendency to forget that because they don't always thank us. They don't always give us a good review. Sometimes we hear the bad reviews more than the good reviews. But if we really dig in and think about how many lives we touch in our just one day of our work, 20, 30 families that we're helping, and that is such an incredible contribution, and give ourselves some credit for that, that would contribute to us feeling better about the work that we do.
Yes, because one of the skills in building mental wellness, and this is, I'll get to my second definition in a second, is in adulthood, gratitude often has to start with us.
Mm,
There's a lot in a good enough childhood where people get a lot of pats on the back and trophies for soccer and grades. People have gone to vet school,
right.
everyone's pretty darn smart and has gotten a lot of A's. But
Yes.
there is a sense of taking stock at the end of every day and looking at the contribution that you made that has become normal in your life, but is not normal. My daughter just had her dog's teeth cleaned at the vet. And she was saying to me, oh my gosh, they just loved my dog so much. They were so great. And maybe she didn't appreciate them or say that to them,
You might not have
but
said that to them, right?
right. But we can say it to ourselves. I'm in a similar profession where people don't walk out of therapy saying like, thanks so much, MJ. But I know when I've had a good day. I know when I've contributed. And part of mental wellness is just to take that 7 seconds and turn inward and be like, wow, I had a good day. I really did contribute. And so let me move to the second, because that's the umbrella definition. But I think the real question for mental wellness is what do we do and how do we understand it when we're just living this really demanding life that most people are living? And that's where I use Siegel's definition. And it starts with a river, a calm river. And this is really shocking to most people. But the natural state of our mind is to be peaceful, calm, and alert. And that the second thing that is often shocking for people is that mental wellness really is about our mind. We have our brain, which is the organ that runs our body, and we have our mind, which cannot be seen. But our mind is our subjective opinions and thoughts, and it's how we process what is happening to us. And so, in order to cultivate mental wellness, the foundational skill is to begin to observe our mind and to, you might not believe it, but to understand that our mind is meant to be peaceful, calm, and alert. But of
Hmm.
course, things happen and we react. And so the rest of the image on either side of this calm river, one side is a bank of chaos. And that's when something happens that throws us out of the river onto the bank of chaos where we feel out of control. And of course, out of control can be from a 1 to a 10. It's not all my house is burning down 10.
Sure.
We
Right.
can feel out of control because we're 20 minutes behind for the day. And our mind is no longer calm and peaceful. Inside, we feel a sense of urgency. We might be irritated. We might be trying to pick up the pace to make up for lost time. The other side of the calm river is rigidity. And that's when we are trying to impose control and we kind of dig our heels in and we're like, things need to be this way. And so, a really powerful skill is to commit to learning to observe our mind, not 24/7, but to observe it, not just, most of us observe our mind when it's uncomfortable, when we're
Right.
anxious, when we're mad, but just to go through the day and just observe, how's my mind at this point? Is it calm? Is it alert? Is it exhausted? Is it anxious? And just put simple words to it. Again, it's a junior high skill here. And what we do then is use the 5 words that Siegel gives us to get us back in the river. When we get thrown to the bank of rigidity, when we get thrown to the bank of chaos, our job is to re-regulate ourselves and to get us back in the river using this acronym FACES: flexible, adaptive, coherence, energized, and stable. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I want to give an example, but before I go on, do you have any questions? Because I can never tell how clear I'm being.
No, I think you're being quite clear. I like that analogy or that visual because I think sometimes when we're in our brain and it's kind of in the chaos or wherever it is, we do need something to kind of help us figure out what we're trying to accomplish, you know.
Yes. I
And I
have a
think
1-pager with the visual, so I can send it to you and your listeners can get it in the show notes.
perfect. That would be awesome. Yeah, no, I think that makes perfect sense. I think one of the reasons that I got into life coaching is just that idea that you can observe what's going on in your mind and actually learn from yourself how to help yourself. And so that's
Yes,
kind of what you're saying to me is like you can think about it, figure yourself out, and then do something about it to get back to the calm river.
right.
Makes
Yeah.
total sense to me.
Because we're taught what I call it, we're taught to try to get the chessboard set up out here so we'll be calm inside.
Right, which never works.
Right. I mean,
Because life is life, right? There's always
right,
going to be something that throws
right.
you out of the river.
And people are not making decisions to make our life calm. They're
No,
making
absolutely.
decisions for their own life. So
Right.
when we shift from, oh, I can't control all this out here, but I
No,
can control this in here. And
exactly.
so the example I want to use is with a physician, and I work a lot with doctors and nurses. And this is a couple years ago. A physician came in, and she had been a person that had really not even thought of any of this until she started to work with me. And she had a situation after she was very familiar with this model and she knew how to implement it, where there was a death in her practice and she was involved and they were doing their best to save the life of the person, but it didn't work. And it was very devastating. And she did what great physicians do, met with the family, comforted them, gave them information. Then she met with her team that was distraught and comforted them, processed it, and then it was time for her to go home. She got in her car, and instead of doing what she'd always done, and that is just push through, go to bed, get up, rinse and repeat, she stopped and grounded herself. And she took some breaths, and she then was flooded with emotion and really on the bank of chaos. And she just allowed herself to be there, no judgment. And she had the thought, wow, it's not safe for me to drive in this situation. So when we go back to faces, that's being coherent. What coherent means is we observe the situation we're in and we try to make our inside and our outside match. Historically, she wouldn't have even paid attention and just driven home.
You just stuff it down
Just,
and
yep,
not face it. Yeah.
And
I think
women
that
are
happens a lot with us.
amazing at doing that. Women
Yeah,
are
we just keep
amazing.
stuffing our feelings.
Yes.
Hmm.
And it's a skill. If you're a vet or you're a doctor, you have to have that skill. You can't freak out in the middle of an emergency.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
it's a really powerful skill that works for you, but also can work against you on a personal level. So
Hmm.
she just sat with her overwhelm, and then she became flexible and said, I'm just going to sit here. And she then thought, I need to talk to someone. And her best friend was a physician. They had an agreement that they could call each other in a crisis. And she called her best friend and just processed the whole experience. 10, 15 minutes, no more. And then after that, she felt stable, the S in faces. And
Right.
she felt like she had the energy to safely drive home. And so that one scenario, and it's dramatic, we're not always processing death, right? I
Right.
have an equally, helpful example in a coffee shop where there was a lot of people and somebody had ordered ahead and got all upset and was on the bank of rigidity demanding her coffee, right? And so it can really be the full spectrum of life because if our goal is, wait, I want to be peaceful and calm no matter what happens out here, then we can apply this in a coffee shop example, or we can apply it in an emergency.
Right. But the peaceful and calm that she established with herself came after she felt all the emotion and processed it, rather
Right.
than, just kind of keep pushing things aside to where the
Yes.
point where you just can't handle one more thing.
Yeah. Because
That's the
life
key,
is really
right?
hard. Life is really, really hard. And
Always.
so we have to be able, like, I think the minute we accept that life is hard, it gets easier. There's a lot of lost energy on saying life should be this way.
Life should always be happy and good. And yeah,
Right.
that was one of the most profound things when I started studying life coaching that somebody said when they were talking about it. They were like, life is half good and half bad. And that's
Hmm.
the first thing you need to accept,
Yeah.
that you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days and terrible things are going to happen. And that's just life.
Yes.
And just saying that way kind of was like, oh yeah, a lot of our suffering comes from expecting things to be good all the time. We
Right.
we cause
And
our own suffering.
we do cause our own suffering often.
Right.
And and one of the tricky dynamics in that is we expect life to be good, but when it's good, we don't do what I call bank it. One of the ways we cultivate mental wellness is to really, when things go well, to stop and feel how great that feels.
Mm,
And that doesn't have to always be these Olympic moments.
right.
I loved the episode, or I loved the show Ted Lasso.
Yes.
And the last episode made me so happy that I just sat on the couch and I just felt that happiness. And I do that sometimes after sessions where sessions go really well. I just stop. I'm like, wow, that is really lovely. I had
Rewarding.
it's very rewarding. And
Yeah.
I had a lovely college student in today, and she really suffers from anxiety. She's really making great progress. And when she's left, I took like 32 seconds. I'm like, wow, I am so lucky to work with her. And it is so beautiful to see her really step into this and make progress.
Yeah.
She's not going to stop and thank me. It's not because she's a lovely person. I'm sure she's
Right.
thankful. And that's one thing I would say to your listeners is bank the good. In adulthood, the two things that seldom happen is plan your own birthday. They're not planned for you very often, and make it great. And when you're doing a good job, stop and give yourself validation. That helps cultivate mental wellness.
Yeah.
Because then we experience our mind in a more content place. And again, when I say that, our mind is peaceful, calm, and alert, I'm not trying to use Buddhist monks who this is their specialty,
Right.
right?
Like you're
Right.
not sitting there doing meditations all day. That's
Right.
not the
No.
goal.
Right. And so I had a very busy mind as a college student, as a kid, as a young adult. And then I just really learned like, this is not healthy. This is making the quality of my life not good and sometimes just miserable. And I applied this model to myself. I didn't just teach it to other people.
Right.
And it really has moved my shift of, agency from out here, hope all this goes well, to in here. Oh, what can I do so I feel better?
Right. Regardless of what's happening around you.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, and I can see this being a critical skill for veterinarians to learn to just accept and notice when good things are happening. Because I mean, I worked in my clinic for many, many years. And I saw a lot of good, but I think you're always on guard for what bad could happen, and you're not really, I love playing with puppies. So if a puppy came in, I
Mm,
was all about it, and I was super happy after that appointment, and super grateful that I get to do what I do. But I think we forget to do that. Like if you
yeah,
really love surgery and you did a great surgery just now and it went beautifully, like just stop and think about that for a minute. And
yeah.
the fact that you say just those little moments can make our mental wellness better, or we can become mentally well by doing that, I think is a powerful thing to think about.
Yeah. And of understanding that the brain is a very old organ and it starts with the negative because it's always scanning for our safety.
Yep, that's that
And,
reptile brain or that chihuahua brain, I call it.
yeah. And that if you understand, oh, that's just where my brain starts. After a really good surgery, I mean, the surgery isn't a Super Bowl experience where there's this whole
People aren't cheering
exterior,
and
yes, that people, a surgery is a serious, focused event.
right.
And of really understanding like that's the brain's not going to cheer, but that's where it starts. And all it really takes, I have this one skill that I've created called a mental movie that you do it 3 times. I have taught this to thousands of people. And when you have something that is successful, that you run a movie of the event just for 20 or 30 seconds and you see what happens inside of you. Then you run the movie again and you add more details or sounds and you let the feeling of accomplishment actually have a space within you to be felt and enjoyed. And then you do it one more time. And what will usually happen is what I call a simple mantra of, hey, I did a good job. And you actually say that and you take it in and you really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's amazing. That makes me think of I'm not really a big fan of doing dentals on animals. And so I used to get it took a lot of my patience. I'm not a very patient person. But when I'd be working on a tooth for a long time and my techs would be encouraging me saying, just take your time, it'll be fine, you'll get it. When that tooth would come out, I would run around in the back of my hospital and sing the Rocky music.
Oh, that's great.
Because I'm a
Yes,
big
yes,
Rocky fan, I'd be like dun dun dun, dun and I would get all excited. But it just like that celebration, that like 2 second celebration that I would do would make all the difference. It would
yes,
change my mind from, oh, that really sucked and that was a horrible hard tooth to get out to, wow, look what I did. I
yes.
did it. And so that reminds me of that as kind of celebrating what you're doing.
Often people think to be mentally well, they need to go on a yoga retreat or a spa or a 2 week vacation. And I'm all for those.
Sure.
But I am super practical. And what I have really learned in working with so many people is that moment and really coming up with those moments every day. One of the things I did is after dinner, I would do the dishes. My husband and I would do dishes. Our kids would sit at the table and do the homework. And when we were done with the dishes, I would say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for doing the dishes. This looks great. And I said it every night
Yourself. I love
to
that.
myself. And I still say it. And
Yeah.
it makes me laugh. And somewhere after a couple years, one of my kids said to me, Mom, why do you always say that? And I said, well, kind of 2 reasons. One is I really love a clean kitchen and I get a little high from it.
Yeah.
But two is I have this silly thought that all of you should be thanking me for doing the dishes.
And nobody ever does.
And they don't. And it's not because they're not grateful. I'm sure they're really grateful because probably most kids aren't doing homework, they're doing the dishes,
Right.
but they're absorbed in their own life. They were doing their, I'm not saying to them, hey, thanks for doing your homework,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and so we can thank ourselves for those things that we do.
Yeah. And that's a
It's
really good
free.
example. It's a really good example to set for your children too, because they probably remember that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're thanking themselves. I'll have to ask them.
Yeah. I bet it has rubbed off on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So is there more about that, about the mental wellness and how we cultivate that for ourselves?
Well, it really does start with observing our mind. And that can be a little scary if you've only observed your mind when it's gone, when it's run amok, is what I call it, right?
Right. Right.
And
When it's jumping off the deep end. Yeah.
and so part of it is just to notice your reaction as we're having this conversation. A lot of times when I start working with people, they have a healthy resistance. They're like, no, like I think people should behave. I think the way people act is ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. They have
And
a manual in their brain about how other people should behave.
yes, and especially it is if people knew, and I don't know about this in vets, you can educate me. If people knew how rude people were to doctors in 2026, many people would be appalled.
I believe
And
that. It's happened in vet med too. People used to be way nicer years ago than
yes,
they are now. They're very demanding. They're very impatient. Yeah. It's happening everywhere, I think.
and so that can be a rub of why should I do this work when I have to, on a regular basis, work with people who, at best, are entitled and at worst are abusing of me,
Abusive. Yeah. Hmm.
and I would like everyone to become civil again, but I don't see it happening soon. But I want to be peaceful. And if people can kind of look at cultivating mental wellness like you would a video game, that there's different levels, people aren't sitting doing a video game yelling at the creator for putting that obstacle there.
Right.
People see it as a challenge. People
Yeah.
see it as a way of leveling up their skill set. And that's how I want people to look at this is that I think we are living in incredibly challenging times. And that means that most of us just going to the grocery store can can run into a conflictual situation that we might be observing or we might be part of. It just there's a lot of tension and that we can level up. We can try to figure out how to be part of the solution and how to not add to the problem. And that
Right.
one of the skills that happens in cultivating mental wellness is it is contagious.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so I was working last week.
If you can be calm with a rude person, they're gonna calm down a lot of time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And you're not going to see, we have in our brains something called mirror neurons. And even online, they're connecting. You and I are connecting. And my mirror neurons influence yours, and yours influence mine. In the 90s, there was this belief of you can't make me feel a certain way. And I remember laughing because I was working in a junior high and I would watch the girl roll her eyes at the other girl, and that girl's day was ruined. Their
Mhm.
mirror neurons had actually dysregulated each other.
Yeah.
And so, if we understand that we have the power, not always, but we definitely have that power to influence how other people treat us if we stay calm, if we stay connecting, if we realize I've said this to clients before who are stepping on the bank of rigidity and starting to yell at me. I'll just say, you know what? I really care about you. I need a few seconds because I'm feeling overwhelmed by your anger.
Mm.
That one of the ways that we cultivate mental wellness is to be honest with what's happening inside of us, not pushing through, but also having the skill set to be honest with what's happening outside of us. I have probably had to do that 800 times, and I have never had anyone continue to escalate. Most people don't know how they're coming off.
Because they're dysregulated.
They're dysregulated, and the
Yeah.
culture is dysregulated.
Hmm.
And we are allowing the culture to be dysregulated with no accountability. So we
Right.
can look at the politicians. It doesn't matter what side you're on. There's a ton of dysregulation.
Yeah, for sure.
And online dysregulates us because online leans towards enragement and anger. And the human brain is not meant to be surrounded by the amount of anxiety and anger that we're surrounded by. And we're not going to change all that, but we can internally work on creating more calm for ourselves. And so when I think about how do we create mental wellness, one is it's helpful to have a model. Like get on the show notes, look at the one pager because it changes. Second, it step into your own agency. Don't wait for everything out here to be calm. And vets, they are amazingly trained in being calm in an emergency. So if you're a vet, you have no new skill set to learn. You just have to put it into your home life. You're not yelling at that horse because that horse is ate wood and has what is it that happens when they eat wood? My sister trains horses. They get something colic, right?
Yeah, colic. Yeah, when
Yeah,
they eat, yeah, yeah, colic.
you're not yelling at the horse that they shouldn't have eaten wood, right? You're like saying, "Oh, okay, the horse ate wood. Now I got to do my job," right?
Right. Now we got to fix this.
Right. So to me, it's like really stepping into what you already know how to do at a much higher level than 99% of the people walking on the streets and gently moving through your resistance of I shouldn't have to work so hard. People should behave, blah blah. Yes, I think you're right, but it is a lot of work to always be wishing things were different instead of applying the skill that you already have and of really asking like what's keeping me dysregulated in my personal life, in my work life. What are the situations that are keeping me dysregulated? And just do some Monday morning quarterbacking on is it, am I not coherent? I had a session a couple days ago where the mom was being dysregulated because one of her kids just doesn't get ready in the morning and she's yelling at him. And is that working?
Yeah,
Right?
usually not.
No, no, because it's really funny. None of us like to be bossed around by someone.
Right. Even
And
kids.
so I said, well, are you ready? And she said, yeah. I said, just go sit in the car. Just go sit in the car and get out of his way. Take a book, start your work, answer your emails. And she's like, well, I can't do that. He'll never show up. I'm like, I'm not saying he'll show up. I'm saying you can stay peaceful while he's screwing around.
Yeah.
You've already tried yelling at him for like 5 years. It's not working. Let's try something new. And I've done this with many, many people. And what usually happens is they wander out. And maybe you're late for school, but which is better? To be peaceful and get to your office or to be all wound up and still late for school?
And angry. Yeah. And then the
Yeah.
rest of your day is ruined
Yeah.
because you're
Yeah.
already all jacked up and anxious and frustrated and yeah.
Yeah. And of really accepting like as much as we love our children, they're not living to please us. They're
It's
they're not living to follow all of our rules. They're kids.
right.
And again, I think children should listen to their parents and blah blah blah, but I know that when parents yell it works initially, but it doesn't work long term. you
Well,
know
and it doesn't help the kids learn how to regulate themselves either. It
right.
teaches them to just yell and be
Yeah.
angry all the time,
Yeah.
which doesn't work either. I
Yeah.
think that's kind of a thing with the clients too. It's like if we're all anxious and worried and they're cranking up, then that mirroring is just going to make everybody more
Right.
anxious and upset and frustrated and all the negative emotion that's comes with having unfortunate circumstances in the veterinary hospital.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which is for certain going to happen every day. Unfortunate circumstances because of the word hospital. It's not a
Right.
petting zoo.
Right.
It's not a petting
Yeah.
zoo.
Yeah.
Right. And so
I
it's
like that.
really,
I like that sentence. It's not a petting zoo. That would be
yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. We'd like it to be a petting zoo, but it's not a
Sure.
petting zoo.
Yeah.
Right.
Days that would I just get to play with puppies, it's great, but that doesn't happen very often.
Right. And so, and I would say most outsiders think all vets are doing are playing with puppies, right? Because
Well, yeah, they
people are like,
don't know what
oh, I'd
we
love to
really
be a
do
vet. I'd love to be a vet, right? But
until
when
they're
we talk
passing
about,
out
yeah,
during surgery.
I mean, that's the model for cultivating mental wellness and understanding the difference between the mind and the brain and really understanding how to observe one's mind. But the secret sauce is having a model and a skill set of managing your emotions.
Yeah.
And we don't have a culture that teaches this. We're actually in a culture right now. We could go to the 30s and 40s and emotions were suppressed.
Right.
And that's not great, but it's kind of better than now where emotions are unleashed.
And
And
emotions are all there is. Like there's
yes,
seems like that the emotions are what dictates the value or it seems like it's over the top.
right. Because one of the great conversations I would have when we would do our unit on emotional regulation with the junior high is I would say, your feelings are not facts. And they were better than a Supreme Court justice. They would come
Argue
at
back.
me, argue back, but they're not facts, they're preferences. And so in our culture, we have an external mindset when it comes to emotional regulation. And the two main tools are blame and unclaim. And that's very helpful for a vet to think about as you work with a client in or a patient, in that most people will come in and they have avoided their pet's problems for too long,
Sure.
or they're going to blame you for not being able to fix something that they avoided, right?
Right.
And that mindset of, you know, blame and unclaim, something happens and I flip into blame. That's the best most people have. But my model, and this is the hardest thing I worked on in my 40 years of being a therapist, was to create a model for regulation that a seventh grade boy could buy into and actually do. And it took 5 attempts. And the day that I was piloting this, which would have been about 15 years ago, maybe more, the seventh grade class had 41 boys and 9 girls. And I was like, I'm screwed because boys don't really, they're not into like, let's figure out how to manage my feelings, MJ.
They just want to all
Right.
hit each other and
Yeah.
jump around and
And so, but in this model, which I call the internal mindset, which is to tend and befriend your emotions. So you notice, you name, you tame, you aim. And when you do that, then your mind, you have what we call wise mind. So, an example, and I'm going to use, got to think of one. Like, just think of an ordinary, like you're running late, like a terrible morning. Everything went wrong. The dog got out, the kid threw up, whatever. And you're all wound up. You're on that bank of chaos where you're feeling out of control. And you just notice that. And you just ground your feet, because when we move our mind to our feet and take a couple breaths, we are back in the present and we're not making up catastrophe stories about what it means to be late.
right.
So we come to the present and we name it, and you say, whatever is in your head, I'm out of control, or oh my God, I'm going to be late. This is terrible. And then after the notice and the name, you just go to your body wherever the tension is. It might be in your head, it might be in your heart, and you just take a few regulating breaths. We have made breath work as hard as brain surgery.
Yeah.
Just breathe. Just
Yeah.
breathe.
You don't have to count. You don't have to
No,
hold
you don't
your
have to
breath.
count. It doesn't have to be long inhale, exhale. If that's what you're
Right.
into, that's awesome. But
Sure.
for this purpose of just re-regulating yourself, just take a few breaths, turn your attention to your body, and you're going to see it calm down. And then you're going to get to the aim. In order for, like, our emotions go on a bell curve. So they go up and they go down. With this tend and befriend, it goes down, and what usually happens is you have mental clarity. Sometimes you need a hug. Sometimes, you got to sit and strategize with sometimes. If it's a big emotion, you might need to sleep. You're not going to do that in the morning, but you're going to feel calmer. And from that, you're going to have mental clarity. Like, oh, I'm going to send a text to the office, going to be 15 minutes late.
Yeah.
Everybody's late. We don't need to make
Well, and
late
of
a
course, the kid
catastrophe.
throws up or the dog throws up sometimes. Like, of course, that
Right,
happens. When you have
right.
cats, there's always puke somewhere.
Yes. My
Yeah.
cat throws up every morning. Every morning
Right.
my cat throws up. I need a vet. Call me. And
Yeah.
so, and then we have a wiser mind.
Right.
And when I taught this uh, method to these 41 boys, the smartest kid in the class came up to me afterwards and he said, I found this very interesting. I said, really? He said, I didn't think I was someone who had emotions. I'm like, oh, okay. He said, if you noticed, there's 8 basic emotions. I had them all do a mental movie of a time that they felt that emotion and practice it. He said, I didn't have a mental movie for the first 3 or 4 emotions. And then I kind of got it. And then I could actually feel it in my body. He
Wow.
said, but I have a question. And I said, okay. He goes, is this like peeing? And in my head, I'm like, no,
What?
buddy, it is nothing like peeing. But I trained myself in junior high to say, oh, can you tell me more about that?
That's interesting, right?
Right. And so I said, oh, can you tell me more about that? He goes, well, you know how we drink all day and we don't think good liquid, bad liquid. But when our body gives us a signal that our bladder is full, we just go pee it out. And he goes, that's what I hear you saying. I hear you saying that we have reactions and we have emotions all day. We don't have to process all of them.
Right.
But when they get to a place where we feel dysregulated, we need to pee them out. And I said to him, that is genius.
It
I
is
will
cheap.
never talk about this without sharing that story. And I named that unit, Have You Potty Trained Your Emotions?
Yeah.
For this kid, Luke, who to this day, he's probably 32. And so it's really helpful that when we observe our mind, we also are becoming aware of our body. And our emotions are physical sensations, nothing more, nothing less. They're our reaction to an event, our mind's reaction, our subjective story. And for some events, it might be an 8 for me and a 2 for you.
Right.
And I need to take responsibility to just notice, name, this feels shitty. I mean, or I feel anxious, or I feel like I'm going to dig my heels in. You can, it doesn't have to like pass like a Psych 101 test.
Right.
And then just do a little breath work and help your central nervous system calm itself down. And then magically, mental clarity is going to happen. And
Hmm.
you're going to be in a wise mind space, you know. And most people should probably do that 2 or 3 times a day because
Yeah.
something dysregulates them. I've worked with clients that actually do it 2 or 3 times an hour because they have sensitive systems and they get overwhelmed a lot.
Right. Well, and I think the more you practice that skill, probably the less overwhelm you'll feel because you'll
That's
get
right.
good at noticing it before it ramps way up.
Yes. And
I,
you become very good at being preventative.
yes,
Oh, you know, we talk a lot about self-care. I'm a huge proponent.
right.
And the model that I use is NESTS: N, nutrition; E, exercise; S, sleep; T, technology management; S, skills for stress. And, you know, as people really buy more into, oh, I can actually make myself mentally well, even if I live in a culture that's kind of cuckoo bananas at this point, they then say, oh, I'm a person that has to get sleep. They're like, oh, my client this morning, lots of overwhelm, lots of stress, hadn't exercised once in the last week.
Mm,
Great. So run an experiment, see if you can run 3 times in this next week and see if that works for you.
works for you. Yeah.
She's figuring out her own self-care. My self-care isn't going to look like someone else's.
Sure. Yeah, I love that. Well, this is really fascinating. We're going to have to get together again because there's so many things that I know that you can teach us.
Oh, thank you. I love it so much. And it really makes a difference. I feel
Yeah.
like people are suffering unnecessarily.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what is like one short thing that we didn't say that we should say before we wrap this up? And if people are enjoying this conversation and you're willing, I'll just have you come back in a few weeks and we'll go through more because you gave me a list of different subjects to talk about. And I feel like there's so much more we can say about this topic and others that will help veterinarians.
I think what I would say is trust yourself. If
Mm,
you are a vet, you are badass. Like
yes,
you have so many skills. And I would just trust whatever you heard that resonated with you. Start there.
and
Like,
take it in.
yeah,
Hmm.
this does not have to be an overnight project, right? That I think that if we do little things, on a regular basis, it does become significant change. You know,
Sure.
some people they can do okay, I'm never going to eat sugar again. Most people not really. That change,
Right.
and we know this through research, change is done, excuse me, with small choices that we make. And so maybe someone's listening and the choice that they make is, oh, after each patient, I'm going to take 30 seconds. I'm going to ground myself. I'm going to just take some breaths, regulate myself, think good job, or I could do better. And then I'm going to move on to the next patient, really centered and present. That, one of the things that most of the physicians and nurses I work with, they have to wash hands between patients. And when they
Mm,
wash hands, they actually use it in a mindful way. They're not washing hands going, oh gosh, I hope my kid got at school. They're washing their hands and they're feeling the water, they're feeling the soap, and they're bringing themselves to the present. So I would just say, trust yourself. Whatever you and I said today that resonated, go for it.
yeah, I love that. And it's so, so important. So really do take something in from this conversation because it will change the rest of your life.
Or at least your day.
Well, yeah, but that's
I
that's
mean,
one step
that's how we
towards
change
your
it.
life,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
one day
Like,
at a time, one
yeah.
baby step at a time. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
so
it's
true.
almost, yeah, it's almost like the more we can just be, what do I need to do? I woke up this morning, it was 5 o'clock. It's my morning to go swimming. I didn't really want to go swimming, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, just get up, just start your day. You don't have to commit to swimming, just see what happens. And after I was up for an hour, I'm like, let's go swimming.
Yeah.
Right. But just that little thing of getting out of bed and not like I'd had enough sleep. I felt fine. Like just that one action changed my day. And
Yeah.
I
And
think we
not worrying
forget,
about all the other things that you have to do. Like I always make lists in my head of things I have to do, and that's causes me to be anxious. So
yes,
when I feel
yes,
myself doing that, I'm like, no, there really is nothing you have to do today.
yeah,
You can
yeah,
just be and then it'll be fine. Rather
yeah,
than, if I don't do these 10 things, then I'm not a worthy human.
right, right. Because we've become transactional
Hmm.
to-do lists more than we are relational. So
Right.
what you're saying, you know, people who have gone to vet school, it is like, I believe, the hardest school to get into. Like you're doers. You're super
Right.
competent. You're super competent. You probably don't even need a list. You probably are going to remember. I mean, think of anatomy. You have all those
Right.
terms in your head. You can
Yeah.
remember the 10 things to do. What
Right.
you can do is when you're spinning to to that list, take a breath and think about something pleasant. Run a movie in your head. I do this all the time. I think about riding my bike when I was a kid when I get into that spinny place. And it's so fun. I love it.
Yeah.
10 seconds and then I'm back into the present.
That's awesome. I love it so much. So tell people where they can find you to learn more about your program and get your book and all the things. And then if you're willing, we'll definitely schedule another day to have you back because I think there's so much more you can teach us.
Yes. If you want to contact me personally, you can go to my outdated website, mjmurrayvachon.com. That is on my list of to-dos to update it. And there's a contact. You can just poke around at the
Find you.
top.
Hmm.
Yeah. You can listen to my podcast. It's 10-minute episodes of just ways to create calm. And I drop them on Monday and Thursday. And they're really bite-sized, so people can just listen to it on the way to work or when they're picking up their
And it's
child.
called Creating Midlife Calm.
Yes, and it's in on all the platforms.
Love it.
And I'll give you the three one-pagers I talked about: mental wellness, and then my
Okay.
emotional regulation and nest.
Yeah, if you email those to me, I'll make sure they get in
Yeah,
the show notes
yeah.
when this
And
podcast.
I'll share with you my favorite podcast episode, which I think really integrates all of these. It was when I was with my 2-year-old grandson when he was getting a blood draw. And
Oh,
he was teaching me, and it's the sweetest episode. It has tons of listens, and it's just a fun 10-minute episode that I think reminds us of everything that we talked about today, and that we don't need to make it hard.
right. Yeah. We're making it harder than it has to be.
Yeah, like we're wired. We are wired to be calm.
So remember that
Yeah,
because we don't
yeah.
think about that.
No, we think we're wired to be busy and anxious, and we can also be busy. We can also be anxious, but
Right.
let's like a third would be fantastic.
Sure. Yeah, that would make all the difference. Well,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you being here today. It's been lovely meeting you and hearing about all this. I love everything you're talking about. So hopefully we'll get together again.
I'd love to do that.
It'd be great.
And thanks to all the work because I'm an animal lover and I'm a vet dropout. And I do think that
Not by
vets,
choice.
no, I think that you really are unsung heroes. And especially for those of us in the therapy field, I use pets a lot in helping people with mental health issues. And they really, for people who suffer from major mental illnesses, it is, I really try to get them stable and to a place that they can care for a pet.
Yeah.
Um, and it is better than medicine many times.
Yeah, it's magic. Yeah,
It
pets are
is magic.
magic. That's why I love
Yeah.
what we do so much.
Yes.
It's such an awesome, awesome thing that we do. And I just want veterinarians to know that because we forget. And
Yes.
so I'm really glad you said that. Thanks for the
Yeah.
compliment
No,
and thanks for letting
it's an
everyone know.
incredible, and I don't know. I've had a lot of vets because I've had a lot of animals. I just have never had a vet that I didn't think was terrific. So they are, they are
They're good people.
they're good people,
I've
and
always said that.
yeah, very good people. And
Yeah,
so
a good
that
group.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. So, everyone, thanks so much for listening. I hope you got a lot out of this. I know I did. And I'll definitely have MJ back and we'll talk some more.
Yes.
So,
Thanks.
all right. Have a beautiful week, everyone. Bye. Bye, MJ.